My mother staged an intervention because I only own 4 plates. Update: she tried to have me declared mentally incompetent. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Original post. I, 32M, need to get this off my chest because I'm starting to question my own sanity. Last Sunday, my mother Patricia, 54F, staged what she called a family intervention at my apartment, claiming my minimalist lifestyle is proof that I'm depressed and not taking care of myself properly. The whole thing was so surreal that I'm still processing what happened. Let me provide some background. I'm a financial analyst who's been living independently since college. About 3 years ago, after a particularly stressful period at work where I was drowning in both physical and mental clutter, I discovered minimalism. It wasn't some dramatic overnight transformation. I spent months thoughtfully evaluating my possessions, my habits, and my living space. I realized I'd been holding on to things out of guilt, obligation, or some vague future what-if scenario that never materialized. The process of decluttering was incredibly liberating. I sold or donated probably 75% of my belongings. My book collection of 500-plus books was reduced to about 30 that I genuinely loved and reread. My wardrobe went from a stuffed closet and dresser to about 25 pieces total, all high-quality items that fit well and could mix and match easily. I moved from a cluttered 2-bedroom apartment to a smaller but much nicer 1-bedroom in a better neighborhood, using the money I saved to pay off the last of my student loans. My current apartment is what I consider perfect. It's clean, organized, and everything has its place. In the living room, I have a comfortable gray couch, a solid wood coffee table, and 1 bookshelf. My bedroom contains a quality bed with white bedding, 2 nightstands, and a dresser. The kitchen is stocked with exactly what I need: a good set of knives, 1 pot, 1 pan, a few dishes and glasses. Everything is high quality and gets used regularly. My walls are mostly bare except for 2 pieces of art. One is an original painting I bought from a local artist that I absolutely love, and the other is a photograph from my trip to Yosemite. That's it. No random decorations, no knickknacks, no pile of throw pillows that serve no purpose except to be moved on and off the couch daily. This lifestyle has brought me incredible peace. My morning routine is simple and stress-free. I know exactly where everything is. Cleaning takes me maybe 30 minutes a week total. I have more money because I'm not constantly buying things I don't need. Most importantly, I have mental clarity that I never had when I was drowning in possessions. But according to my mother, this is all evidence of severe depression. The intervention ambush happened Sunday evening. I just finished meal prepping for the week when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother, my sister Rebecca, 30F, my Aunt Linda, 58F, and my cousin Jennifer, 34F, standing there with concerned expressions and, bizarrely, several shopping bags from Home Goods and Target. "We need to talk," my mother announced, pushing past me into my apartment before I could even process what was happening. They filed in, and immediately began looking around with expressions ranging from concern to horror. My sister actually gasped when she saw my living room. "James, where's all your stuff?" she asked, as if I'd been robbed. "This is all my stuff," I replied, still confused about what was happening. My mother's eyes were actually tearing up as she looked around. "Oh honey, it's worse than I thought." That's when she announced this was an intervention. They'd apparently been discussing their concerns about me for months. The evidence of my supposed mental health crisis? My apartment was empty. I'd gotten rid of everything. I only posted occasional photos on social media instead of daily updates, and I declined several invitations to cluttered, chaotic family gatherings in favor of quieter activities. My Aunt Linda, who watches too many daytime talk shows, actually used the term environmental depression and suggested my empty space reflected an empty soul. I'm not making this up. They proceeded to unpack the shopping bags, revealing their help. Throw pillows in various patterns that didn't even match each other, let alone my couch. Decorative bowls and vases. Picture frames with stock photos still in them. A wall hanging that said, "Home is where the heart is," in cursive script. Artificial plants. Scented candles in fragrances that immediately gave me a headache. "We're going to help you make this feel like a real home," my mother announced, already fluffing pillows and placing them on my couch. I tried to explain. I really did. I told them about minimalism, about how this was an intentional choice, about how much happier and less stressed I was. I showed them my bank account balances. Privacy went out the window at this point, to prove I wasn't in financial trouble. I pulled up my recent performance review at work showing I'd exceeded expectations. I even showed them photos from my recent vacation to Costa Rica with friends, proving I wasn't isolating myself. Nothing mattered. In their minds, they'd already constructed a narrative where I was a depressed, struggling man who couldn't take care of himself properly. Every piece of evidence to the contrary was dismissed or twisted to fit their theory. My excellent work review. Throwing yourself into work to avoid dealing with emotions. My vacation photos. Running away from your problems. My healthy bank account. Not spending money on yourself because you don't think you deserve nice things. The real bomb dropped when my mother presented her solution. Rebecca has been having a hard time with her rent, she said, putting her arm around my sister. And you clearly need someone here to help you maintain a proper household. She's willing to move in and help you get back on your feet. I looked at Rebecca, who was nodding enthusiastically. She'd been complaining about her expensive studio apartment for months, bouncing between retail jobs, and suddenly her concern for my mental health made a lot more sense. I could help you decorate properly, make sure you're eating real meals, maybe even host family dinners here, Rebecca said, already eyeing my apartment with a calculating look. That spare room you use for working out would make a perfect bedroom. That's when I lost my patience. I firmly but clearly told them that Rebecca would not be moving in, that I didn't need or want their decorations, and that they needed to leave. This led to tears, my mother, accusations of selfishness, Rebecca, lectures about family obligation, Aunt Linda, and attempts at mediation, Cousin Jennifer, who seemed the least convinced by the whole thing but went along anyway. We're just trying to help you, my mother sobbed. Why won't you let us help you? Because I don't need help, I said. I'm not depressed. I'm not struggling. I'm actually the happiest I've been in years, and the only thing stressing me out right now is this ambush. They finally left after 2 hours, but not before my mother declared she wouldn't give up on me, and Rebecca muttered something about my selfishness loud enough for me to hear. They left all the decorations, insisting I should live with them for a while and see how much better I felt. I spent the rest of the evening boxing up their gifts and trying to process what had just happened. The thing that bothers me most isn't just the invasion of my space or the attempt to remake my life according to their standards. It's the complete dismissal of my autonomy, the assumption that they know better than I do about my own life and happiness. Since Sunday, I've received approximately 47 text messages from my mother. They range from links to articles about depression in men, to interior design inspiration photos, to guilt trips about how I'm pushing away people who love me. Rebecca has been posting passive-aggressive memes on Facebook about family members who don't appreciate what they have and siblings who won't help each other. I'm exhausted. I love my family, but I cannot and will not let them bulldoze my life because they can't understand that different doesn't mean wrong. I'm not backing down on this, but I'm worried about what their next move might be. Update 1. 3 weeks later. I need to update because the situation has escalated beyond anything I could have imagined, and I need this documented somewhere. After the intervention fiasco, I had about a week of relative calm. My mother reduced her texts to maybe 5 or 6 per day, progress, sadly, and Rebecca stopped the social media campaign. I thought maybe they were coming to terms with my boundaries. I should have known better. Last Monday, I had a dentist appointment in the afternoon. I came home around 4 p.m. to find my apartment door unlocked. My heart immediately started racing. I'm meticulous about locking up. I pushed the door open slowly, phone ready to call 911, and found Rebecca in my living room. She was standing there with shopping bags scattered around her feet, in the process of hanging something on my wall. My minimalist sanctuary had been transformed into what I can only describe as a home goods explosion. Throw pillows in every pattern imaginable covered my couch. Decorative objects cluttered every surface, ceramic elephants, woven baskets, candle holders, picture frames with random stock photos. She'd put a fuzzy rug over my hardwood floors, hung curtains over my blinds, and, I kid you not, there was a live, laugh, love decal being applied to my wall. "How did you get in here?" was all I could manage. She turned around with a bright smile, as if this was completely normal. "Mom gave me the spare key you gave her for emergencies. This is an emergency, James. Look how sad this place was." "Was," I repeated, looking around at the chaos. "I'm not done yet," she said cheerfully. "Wait until you see what I got for the kitchen. You only have 4 plates, James. What happens when you have people over?" "I don't have people over who require more than 4 plates," I said, still in shock. "Rebecca, you need to leave. Now." Her face fell into a practiced pout. "I'm trying to help you. I spent my own money on this." "Money you claim not to have for rent," I pointed out. That's when the tears started. She accused me of being cruel, ungrateful, and too sick to see that you need help. She actually said, verbatim, "Sometimes people with mental illness don't know they're ill. That's why they need family to step in." I started physically removing the items she'd placed, which escalated her crying. She pulled out her phone and called our mother, sobbing about how I was having an episode and destroying everything. Within 20 minutes, my apartment was full of people. My mother arrived with my father David, 56M, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. My Aunt Linda showed up, followed by my Uncle Robert, 60M, who I actually get along with normally but who seemed swept up in the drama. "Rebecca is trying to help you," my mother said, physically placing herself between me and the box I was packing. "The least you could do is appreciate the effort." "She broke into my apartment," I said slowly, hoping someone would grasp the insanity of this. "She didn't break in, she used a key," my mother countered, as if that made it better. "A key for emergencies. This is not an emergency. This is trespassing." My father, who usually stays silent during family drama, finally spoke up. "Patricia, the boy has a point. This is his apartment." My mother whirled on him. "Of course you'd take his side. You're enabling this illness." "What illness?" I demanded. "Please, tell me exactly what illness causes someone to prefer a clean, organized living space." My Aunt Linda jumped in with, "Environmental depression is a real thing, James. I saw it on Dr. Phil. When people can't fill their spaces, it's because they can't fill the emptiness inside." I actually laughed at that, which was apparently the wrong response. My Uncle Robert, trying to be the voice of reason, suggested we all calm down and talk about this rationally. "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "Everyone needs to leave my apartment now, or I'm calling the police." The word police stopped everyone cold. My mother's face went from concerned to furious. "You would call the police on your own family?" she asked, voice dripping with hurt. "I'm asking my family to respect my boundaries and my home," I replied. "If you can't do that, then yes, I'll call whoever I need to call." It took another 30 minutes of arguing, but they finally left. Rebecca made sure to sob dramatically the entire time, lamenting about how she was just trying to help and how I was pushing away love. She left all her purchases, declaring that I should sit with them and see how much better they made me feel. The moment they left, I called my landlord. He confirmed I could change the locks at my own expense, which I did that very evening. I then spent hours returning my apartment to its minimalist state, boxing up all the unwanted items. The next morning, I left the boxes outside Rebecca's apartment with a note, "Your items are not welcome in my home. Do not enter my apartment again." The family group chat exploded. My mother told everyone I was having a mental health crisis and had aggressively rejected help from loving family members. She painted a picture of me living in an empty, cold apartment, pushing away anyone who tried to bring warmth and life into my space. Some relatives sided with her immediately. My cousin Jennifer, who'd been at the original intervention, wrote a long message about how mental health is serious and how we needed to support James even if he resists. But others were skeptical. My Uncle George, my father's brother, wrote, "Has anyone considered that James just likes a clean apartment? This seems like a massive overreaction." My grandmother called me privately, very concerned. My mother had told her I was living in squalor and refusing help. I video called her immediately, giving her a tour of my perfectly clean, organized apartment. "This is squalor?" she asked, looking confused. "This is nicer than most people's homes. What exactly is Patricia upset about?" I explained the whole situation, and my grandmother sighed deeply. "Your mother has always been like this. She needs to control everything. When you were a baby, she used to rearrange the nursery at my house because it wasn't stimulating enough." That was revealing. I've started keeping detailed documentation of everything. I have photos of my apartment before and after Rebecca's break-in. I've saved all text messages and emails. I installed a security camera, with landlord permission, and made sure my new locks are high quality. Something tells me this isn't over. Update 2, 6 weeks after the first update. I thought changing the locks would solve the problem. I was naive. About 2 weeks after the lock incident, I started noticing subtle things. I'd come home and something would be slightly off. A book moved half an inch. My meal prep containers in a different order in the fridge. The angle of my desk lamp changed. Small things that made me question my memory. I mentioned it to my friend Michael, who immediately said, "Dude, you're not crazy. Install a camera inside." I'd already installed one outside my door, but I took his advice and put one inside with a view of the living room and kitchen. What I discovered made my blood run cold. The footage showed the building's maintenance supervisor, Harold, letting my mother and Rebecca into my apartment during work hours. They would come in, make small improvements, take photos, and leave. In one video, my mother directs Rebecca to place a small decorative object on my bookshelf while saying, "He won't even notice, but subconsciously it'll make him feel better." They were literally trying to gaslight me into thinking I wanted their decorations. I immediately took the footage to building management. The manager was horrified. Harold was fired that day, and they offered me a month of free rent to avoid legal action. I accepted but also made it clear that no one, absolutely no one, should have access to my apartment without my explicit permission. When I confronted my mother with the footage, her response stunned me. "We were just trying to help gradually," she said, completely unashamed. Dr. Patricia says that people in denial sometimes need subtle interventions to accept help. "Dr. Patricia?" I asked. "My friend Patricia from book club. She has a psychology degree." "An undergraduate degree from 30 years ago doesn't make her a doctor, Mom." That's when she dropped the real bombshell. "I've been documenting your condition, and I think we need to consider more serious interventions. Maybe a conservatorship, just temporarily, until you're better." A conservatorship. My mother was actually considering trying to take legal control of my life because I don't like throw pillows. I immediately contacted a lawyer. Thomas, a friend from college who practices family law, reviewed her evidence, photos of my minimalist apartment, texts where I declined family dinners, the fact that I work from home several days a week, my refusal to let Rebecca move in. "This is ridiculous," he said. "You're a functioning adult with a job, friends, and a clean apartment. No court would even consider this. But the fact that she's thinking this way is concerning." He recommended I take protective measures. Get a psychological evaluation to have on record. Have my doctor provide a written statement about my health. Gather character references from employers and friends. Document all interactions with my family. Consider a restraining order if the harassment continued. I followed his advice. The psychologist I saw actually laughed when I explained why I was there. "You're one of the most mentally healthy people I've evaluated," she said. "Your lifestyle choices show strong decision-making skills and self-awareness. The only stress in your life seems to be coming from your family." My doctor was equally baffled. "You're in excellent health. Better than most people your age. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." My boss wrote a glowing character reference, noting my reliability, professionalism, and strong performance. My friends provided statements about my active social life and general well-being. Armed with this documentation, I thought I was protected. Then Rebecca escalated things in a new direction. She started a social media campaign. Not just passive-aggressive memes anymore, but actual posts about how her mentally ill brother was denying her a safe place to live, and how she was willing to sacrifice to care for him but he won't accept help. She created a narrative where she was a selfless sister trying to save her brother from himself, and I was the cruel sibling pushing family away. She posted photos of my empty apartment from her break-in, with captions about how heartbreaking it was to see how I lived. Some people who didn't know the full story started reaching out to me, concerned. I had to explain repeatedly that I wasn't depressed, wasn't in crisis, and definitely didn't need my sister as a live-in caretaker. The situation was affecting my work. I was constantly stressed, checking security footage, fielding concerned messages from people who'd seen Rebecca's posts. I decided to take more drastic action. I sent a formal cease and desist letter to my mother and sister, drafted by Thomas. It outlined their harassment, trespassing, and defamation, and made clear that any further contact would result in legal action. I also sent an email to my extended family with the facts. Photos of my clean, organized apartment. The security footage of them breaking in. Screenshots of Rebecca's false social media posts. My psychological evaluation and doctor's statement. A clear timeline of events. The family divided into camps. Some, particularly my mother's siblings, insisted I was overreacting and should work things out as a family. Others, including my grandmother and surprisingly my Uncle Robert, recognized that my mother and sister had crossed serious boundaries. My father called me privately. "Your mother has gone too far," he admitted. "I've tried talking to her, but she's convinced you're in crisis. I think she needs help, not you." Update 3, 2 months after the second update. The cease and desist letter triggered what I can only describe as an extinction burst. My mother, barred from contacting me directly, started a campaign through other family members. She organized a family meeting about James at my Aunt Linda's house. I only found out because my cousin Kevin, who's always been level-headed, texted me about it. "Dude, you need to know what's happening," he said. "This is insane." He attended the meeting and secretly recorded it for me. Listening to that recording was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. My mother had created a PowerPoint presentation. A PowerPoint. About my supposed mental illness. She'd gone through my social media with a fine-tooth comb, screenshotting posts and creating a narrative of decline. A photo of me hiking alone was labeled social isolation, prefers solitude to family gatherings. A picture of my simple breakfast of eggs and toast was inadequate self-care, not eating properly. A photo of my organized desk was obsessive behavior masking depression. She'd created a whole alternate reality where I was spiraling into mental illness, supported by cherry-picked evidence and wild interpretations. But the presentation was just the beginning. She announced that she'd already taken steps to help me. She'd spoken to Rebecca's landlord about breaking her lease. She'd researched therapists who specialized in minimalism as a mental disorder, not a real thing. She'd consulted with a lawyer about wellness checks and emergency conservatorship. She'd created a care schedule where family members would rotate checking on me. The proposed care plan was detailed. Rebecca would move in as primary caregiver. Family members would have scheduled check-ins. I would be required to attend weekly family dinners. My apartment would be properly decorated to create a healing environment. I would undergo therapy to address my environmental depression. She presented this as if it were a done deal, just needing family buy-in to implement. According to Kevin, reactions were mixed. Some family members were uncomfortable but stayed quiet. Others, like my Aunt Linda, were fully on board, offering to help research therapists and decoration ideas. My Uncle George finally spoke up. "Patricia, this seems extreme. The kid just likes a clean apartment. Lots of people are minimalists now." My mother's response, "That's what they want you to think. It's a cult that preys on vulnerable people. James needs us to save him from this." A cult. Minimalism was now a cult in her mind. The meeting ended with my mother assigning tasks to various family members. She wanted everyone involved in her intervention plan. Kevin said he left feeling like he'd witnessed something deeply troubling, but not in the way my mother intended. After receiving this information, I knew I had to take decisive action. Through Thomas, I sent 1. Formal cease and desist letters to every family member who'd agreed to participate in the care plan. 2. A letter to my apartment building banning my mother and sister from the premises. 3. Notice to my employer security team about potential harassment. 4. A detailed letter to the entire extended family explaining the legal definition of stalking and harassment. I also decided to go fully public with the situation. I posted on my social media. To friends and family, I am not mentally ill. I am not depressed. I am not in need of intervention. I am a minimalist by choice, and I'm happy with my lifestyle. Recent claims about my mental health are false and constitute harassment. I've had to take legal action to protect my privacy and autonomy. To those who truly care about me, I'm doing great. To those participating in harassment disguised as help, please stop. The response was immediate and intense. My mother sent a 10-page email to the entire family, through my aunt, since she couldn't contact me directly, about how my paranoia and aggression were further proof of mental illness. She claimed my legal actions were symptoms of my condition. But this time, the tide turned. My grandmother replied all, "Patricia, you need professional help. Your obsession with James is unhealthy. He's a successful, happy adult man who likes a clean house. You're going to lose your son forever if you don't stop this nonsense." Other family members started speaking up. My Uncle George shared that he'd researched minimalism and found it was a legitimate lifestyle choice embraced by millions. My cousin Sarah mentioned that she'd been considering minimalism herself after seeing how peaceful I seemed. My father finally took a stand. He told my mother she had two choices: get therapy for her obsessive behavior or face separation. He revealed something that explained a lot. My mother's brother, my Uncle Christopher, had suffered from severe depression in his 20s. He'd isolated himself, lived in an increasingly empty apartment, and eventually took his own life. My mother had been seeing signs that weren't there, projecting her unprocessed trauma onto my lifestyle choices. Final update, 4 months after the original post. This is my final update because we've reached a resolution, though it came through an unexpected crisis. Despite the cease and desist letters and family pushback, my mother made one last desperate attempt. She showed up at my workplace. I work for a financial services firm downtown. We have a professional environment, security, the works. Somehow, my mother talked her way past the front desk and made it to the HR department. She had a folder with her evidence of my mental illness. She demanded to speak to someone about her concerns for my mental health and insisted they needed to do a wellness check or put me on medical leave for my own good. The HR manager, Susan, listened politely for about 5 minutes before realizing what was happening. She called security to escort my mother out, but not before my mother caused a scene in the lobby, crying about how corporate America was enabling her son's mental illness. The head of HR called me immediately. "James, I need to ask, is your mother okay?" Because that was concerning behavior. I explained the situation, the minimalism, the harassment, the attempted interventions. Susan was appalled. The company's legal team got involved, sending my mother a formal trespassing notice and offering me their full support, including legal resources if needed. But the damage was done. Everyone at work knew something had happened. I had to have an awkward conversation with my boss about my family situation. Thankfully, he was understanding and even shared that his brother had dealt with similar boundary issues with their parents. This incident was the final straw for my father. He came to my apartment that evening, calling first and respecting my boundaries, and told me he'd given my mother an ultimatum: intensive therapy or divorce. "I should have done this months ago," he said, looking exhausted. "Your mother, she never dealt with Christopher's death. When you started living minimally, all she could see was her brother. But that's not an excuse for what she's put you through." He also told me that Rebecca had been using the situation for her own benefit. She'd been telling people she was my designated caregiver, and had even applied for jobs listing me as a dependent she cared for. The delusion ran deep. Faced with losing her marriage and potential legal consequences from my workplace, my mother finally agreed to therapy. Real therapy, not her book club friend, Dr. Patricia. It's been 2 months since she started. The change has been slow but noticeable. Through my father, she sent me a letter. "James, I've been working with my therapist to understand why I became so fixated on your lifestyle. I projected my fears and unresolved grief onto you in harmful ways. I violated your boundaries and tried to control your life based on my own anxiety. This was wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness or contact. I'm just acknowledging the harm I caused. Your lifestyle choices are valid, and you have the right to live as you choose. I'm continuing therapy to address my issues. I hope someday, if you're willing, we might rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. But I understand if that's not possible."
Mom.
It was the first time she'd acknowledged my autonomy or admitted wrongdoing. Rebecca, however, doubled down. When the move-in with James plan collapsed, she blamed me publicly for her financial struggles. She's been posting about how families should support each other, and how some people are too selfish to help struggling siblings. I maintained the no-contact order with both of them, though my father and I have grown closer. He's been seeing a therapist too, to understand how he enabled the situation for so long. The extended family has mostly moved on, though there are still some who think I should forgive and forget, because family is family. I've learned that family is often used to excuse inexcusable behavior. My minimalist apartment remains my sanctuary. I did add one thing: a high-quality security system with multiple cameras and smart locks. Not because I live in fear, but because I've learned that sometimes the biggest threats to your peace come from the people who claim to love you most. Looking back, there were signs I missed or dismissed. And my mother's need to control every aspect of her environment and everyone in it. And her inability to accept choices different from hers as valid. And the way she'd always known better about everything from my career to my relationships. And how she'd recruit others to pressure me when I didn't comply with her wishes. This experience taught me valuable lessons. 1. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. 2. Document everything when dealing with boundary violations. 3. Don't be afraid to involve legal help, it's not overreacting. 4. Mental health issues in one family member can manifest as controlling behavior toward others. 5. You can't rationalize with irrationality. 6. Sometimes protecting your peace means difficult choices about family contact. To anyone dealing with similar situations, your lifestyle choices are valid. Your boundaries matter. You're not responsible for managing other people's anxieties about your life. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is maintain distance until people get help. My life is peaceful again. I wake up in my uncluttered space, go through my simple morning routine, and feel genuine contentment. The only difference is now I have cameras recording it all, just in case someone decides my happiness is a symptom that needs fixing. But for now, I'm free to live my minimalist life in peace. And that's worth everything I went through to protect it.